Have a look at the career section of any ESL job board and you will find an abundance of jobs. Scroll through any Hagwon blacklist and you will find an abundance of reasons to avoid taking any job in Korea. As they say, it is easy to find a job in Korea, but it is hard to find a good job in Korea. In game theory and economics, the definition of a screening game goes something like this. There are two players. One player has some information that can influence the other player. The uninformed player forces the informed player to reveal the information by making a promise or pre-committing to a response. In your job search, the information would be the quality of the employer, basically their intentions and strategy when it comes to employees. Of course, employers know this about themselves. In contrast, you obviously have limited information about the employer's quality. They may tell you that they are a good employer, but talk is cheap. There are a few screening strategies to get around this. Your promise to seriously consider taking the job only if they respond to some requests can be used to let them reveal information. Okay, let's get to the most important part of this session. Remember to make the following 3 requests as you dramatically increase your chances of having a positive experience. First, ask for information about the school, such as the name and address. This can be used for further research. The better the school's reputation, the less hesitant they would be to give this. Second, ask to talk to another foreign teacher who works there, preferably the teacher you'll be replacing. Someone who is leaving would have little reason not to tell the truth. Again, a refusal to let you talk to someone else working there also gives information. A video call is best, as you can get more information and people tend to be more honest than in an email or text. Be sure to ask why they are leaving. A teacher leaving before the end of their contract without good reason is cause for concern. Finally, ask for a reasonable time to review the final contract. Any attempts to get you to answer in less than 24 hours for any reason is highly suspect. Now you can use the information you got from the first screening step to do some further research. Search for the school on Hagwon forums and blacklists. They can be found by simply searching Hagwon blacklist. Use Ctrl and F to search on sites that don't have built-in search functionality. Next, search for the place the school is in. Being close to transport is an obvious benefit. Weather across Korea generally follows a similar pattern, with humid summers and very cold winters. But some places are more extreme. In general, places in the north, like Seoul, have harsher winters and get more yellow dust. As a general rule, places with bigger populations offer more things to see and buy, as well as a livelier social scene. We have assumed so far that your employer would be a private academy or Hagwon, focused on school-aged children, but obviously there are other options too. Government schools and universities also hire foreigners to teach English. They do offer more stability than Hagwons, but the requirements to qualify are more strict and the application process is time-consuming. The job itself also tends to involve more rigid planning and admin work. Also, don't expect government officials to always be above cutting corners. Employers focus on a wide range of different ages, as Korean parents let their children start learning early, and even adults in Korea quite commonly attend English-speaking classes. Many teachers avoid teaching kindergarten because it is emotionally draining, but teaching adults requires more mental effort to make lessons interesting. Working for a small business may mean a better work atmosphere and higher status, as you would be the only or one of only a few foreign teachers. A larger business would generally be more stable financially, but you would also be seen as less essential. Different employers focus on different class sizes. Teaching large classes generally requires more careful planning to keep things going smoothly, while small or individual classes require more emotional involvement. Unsurprisingly, teaching objectives differ for different employers. Some prepare students to go to international schools or travel abroad, while others focus on improving general speaking skills, debating, essay writing, and so on. It might be tempting to take a job without having an interview, but having one is actually a great advantage. It is obviously an opportunity to get more information, but it is also good for gauging how well you would get along with your new boss or manager. Sometimes the boss would let a manager or other teacher do the interview. An interview is also an investment of time and emotion from the employer's side. The more attached and invested they are in you, the more scope you have to negotiate. A final benefit is that any interview is an opportunity to practice and learn. Interviews can be quite difficult and stressful, but practice makes perfect, or at least better. Personal questions and scenarios are quite common in interviews. The scenario often involves difficult students and how you would respond to their poor behavior. It is a good idea to think through some scenarios beforehand. Keep the response safe and inoffensive with implicit threats and appeals to the group interest. Refer back to Session 2 for some ideas. Avoid simply saying that you would follow official policy or immediately call another teacher. With this question, the interviewer wants to see if you can handle some situations on your own and assert your authority as a teacher. Of course, there would be some personal questions. The simple, "Tell me about yourself." It is quite common, so it is worth preparing a short introduction with your basic teaching philosophy, interests, and so on. It doesn't have to be very detailed or creative. Simple and positive is good enough. In the interview, it is also a good idea to exaggerate gestures and facial expressions a bit to get your point across. Interviewers like to see that you can express concepts to students without relying solely on words. Being polite is important, but interviewers don't always speak English very well, so using formal language to appear polite doesn't always work. If you want to put in some extra effort before the interview, you can think of some light conversation topics and questions. Korean people generally have some pride in their town or city, so asking about things to do or special foods in the area usually works well. Especially if the interviewer is not fluent in English, it could help to memorize some Korean words to show that you are willing to learn and be accommodating. However, don't try too hard to steer the conversation into a direction where you can use the words. Dressing up a little more than you would do for work generally creates a good impression, but overdoing it could be counterproductive. Smart casual with a plain background is generally best. Some interviewers might want to see you present a mock lesson, but they would let you know beforehand so you can prepare. The key to success here is having enough material for the required time and acting as if you are teaching real students. When you get offered a contract, it is time to carefully read through it and note any possible issues. Pay special attention to the start and end dates, the salary and payday, the work schedule, and the conditions around extra work. Note the overtime pay and whether taking extra work is required or optional. Contracts commonly have some vague clauses that could seem like potential trouble. The best way to check how they would be applied in practice is to ask another teacher working there. Training over weekends is usually uncommon unless it is required by some law or regulation. because most employers won't spend their own money or time on something that won't directly increase profits. Non-teaching duties or efforts usually refer to simple tasks like basic classroom cleaning or lesson preparation. This clause may be used to demand after-hours work, but the section on conditions for extra work is more critical in this regard. Some employers may be worried about their competitors stealing their information or employees, so they add clauses about secrecy or a prohibition on working in the same area for some period of time. These conditions are generally easy to comply with, but if they concern you, ask another teacher working there. The contract should preferably explicitly state what would be deducted from a salary. Tax and health insurance deductions are prescribed by law, but having them in the contract can avoid misunderstandings. There could also be a deduction for pension, but this depends on whether your country has a pension agreement with Korea. See the National Pension Services website for a list of countries that are not covered. The website also tells you how to apply for a lump sum refund on your pension payments when you leave Korea. Utilities may also be deducted directly from your salary, and a housing deposit might be deducted from your first salary. You are supposed to get the housing deposit back at the end of the contract, but this is often an issue if any so-called damage is found. Taking photos of your apartment and reporting any issues when you move in goes a long way to disprove any false claims of damage. If you find any concerning clauses, try to judge the intention. Is it most likely a simple mistake or oversight, or a setup to somehow exploit you? This can often be revealed when you try to negotiate. A simple explanation or offer to change the contract is a positive sign. Defensiveness is a red flag. You may continue to negotiate for a while until the contract is acceptable, or decline the offer. Try not to drag things out too long before making a decision. Declining one or more offers usually makes an agent become less helpful, but it is better than signing a contract with an unsuitable employer. Finally, let's talk about agents or recruiters. It might be tempting to contact employers directly, but there are some benefits to using an agent. You don't pay the recruitment fee, so going direct doesn't save you money directly. The employer might be happy that you saved them some money, but don't expect to see any reward for it. Also, the mere fact that the employer pays to recruit you is an advantage. The recruitment fee is a sunk cost that is quite difficult or impossible to get back, so they are more committed to keeping you in the job. The fact that they are willing to pay to get you there shows that they have a real need to have a foreign teacher. Furthermore, an agent is one more person to ask advice or complain to if necessary. Agents generally want to be helpful in the hope that you will recommend them to other people. Having another person to complain to also helps to keep an employer in check, as they would want to avoid losing face. The final benefit is that an agency is more vulnerable to criticism. A recruitment agency gets an income from placing teachers, so it needs a good reputation to get a steady stream of potential teachers. An employer only needs to convince one or a handful of foreigners to trust them enough to sign a contract. A final point is that it is harder for an agency to make legal claims against critics. In South Korea, legal claims for defamation are common, so criticizing a previous employer carries some risk. It is much easier to criticize an agency, as agencies deal with many people, and they would have a much harder time even identifying critics, let alone making legal claims against them. In the next session, we will talk about something a bit more practical and a lot more fun: everyday life in Korea.